I think that to me, Carolina's position is very interesting. Like it really, like I guess it really seems like what the management sees and what Rule sees fits is like job security. Personally, from what I've seen, I don't see why he would need to be worried about his job, like compared to like what he's had quarterback wise. Now, if it was to Belichick with Sam Darnold, so I want that guy. But yeah, I could see that. No, I mean, coaching resume there. I think it's the. I think Carolina's looks better than that. And I feel like Carolina's people. I was floating between the Giants and Carolina on that New Orleans trade. I just didn't think Carolina would trade back with New Orleans. So you're good. Let's get it. Scrambling, trying to get it going. That's doing on 5 megabytes a second. It like fluxes up and down on the test. I'm like, please just survive for at least an hour.
You have the Eagles and Saints trade.
On hand. Just the info on it. Okay.
All right, cool. Ready?
You.
All right, let's do it. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Nothing But the Game. Evan, how goes it?
Hello. Oh, it is a glorious day. It
Where
is
are
beautiful.
you? Where are you streaming it from today,
Man.
man?
Right now, if my background doesn't give it away, I'm in the glorious state of Arizona. Actually, Cottonwood, just outside of the Sedona Red Rock area. So yeah,
I mean,
we're
it
trying to bring
looks-
some views.
I look like a teenager living out of his mom's basement, and you got this beautiful, beautiful background, man. I got comic books and action figures.
Oh, hey, there is nothing wrong with some comic books. Definitely, I indulge in that with my kiddo. Definitely, but if I can provide this, I'll at least try to up it as opposed to some of the blurred backgrounds I normally provide.
It looks great, man. It's a great source of entertainment for today's show. So,
Pardon the wind, by the way. There are the hazards that come with being outside like this.
oh man, you're coming in loud and clear on this side. Hopefully anybody that's tuning in here isn't. Hopefully we can all be heard. We've had some technical difficulties the last couple of weeks.
we're figuring out.
We're figuring
That's the
out,
best way to
man.
put it.
Rolling
That's
with
the
the
best way to
punches
put it
here.
there.
So.
Exactly.
Oh man, you're coming in loud and clear on this side.
Oh shoot.
Hopefully, anybody that's tuning in here. Sorry, I had to tune in to make sure we were working.
Hey, after the past few times, few weeks, either me dropping out or an entire episode's just not going up there. Hey, I don't blame it. We got to do some troubleshoot.
We're good, man. We're coming in good. All right, everybody, welcome to the first. I'm gonna call it the first official. This is our first official live stream on Twitter. We're also streaming live on YouTube as well. Nothing but the game. We're just a bunch of dudes who love talking about football, like talking about nothing but the game, and
Absolutely.
we love coming at you with roster moves or potentials. Who up and comers, trades that could happen. Just your average Joes loving the game. So just to jump into some news that happened this week. Today, Stefon Diggs signed a 6-year extension up to $96 million, and $70 million of it's guaranteed. So it makes
Damn.
him the second highest guaranteed or second highest in terms of guaranteed money by a receiver, second to Tyreek Hill.
Hey,
Um, so, what are your initial thoughts on it?
I mean, it to me it was all coming down to the money, but he's worth every penny. I put him up there, especially for the chemistry that he provides with Allen and that team. I think that no matter what they had to do, get him taken care of to make sure he was going to be staying there. He's five guy in the league, um, in multiple different facets, not just star potential, but just what he brings in all aspects. So I think I mean, enough said of it. It's needed to be done, and they did a good job for him.
Yeah, so we put out a tweet earlier today, commenting on Pro Football Focus. They were asking like, you know, top wide receiver, where does he fall in the range? And I mean, I think the reality of it is, and I think you and I can both kind of agree on it. I think wide receiver is it's a system it's a system position, right? Like you have to have the right fit and the right quarterback to be an excellent wide receiver. I think guys like Cortland Sutton and AJ Brown. I think these guys could all be a top receiver if they're in
Hmm.
the right situation. I mean, aside from Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins, who are just I think physical specimens that are just crazy, much like Calvin Johnson was back in his
Yeah,
back in his day. Like I think system is everything, and Stefon Diggs really fits the system and has the chemistry with Josh Allen. That I mean, 2 seasons ago, he led the league in reception yards, receptions. I mean, almost all categories. Like, so I think it speaks highly of the Bills and what they're first you have the signing of Von Miller, and now the extension. Like, they're in there. We talk about being in the window, right? We talked about the Colts being in the window, and I think the Bills recognize that they're in this window right now to win a Super Bowl, and they're gonna make sure they do everything in their power to attain it. So I mean,
and the way that they're going about it right now, I think that they're putting their window a little bit wider than some. I know as a Cowboys fan, we've always heard of these windows, and I'm always, and, see them in these like 2 or 3 year kind of windows based off of contracts, what's going to be available, who's moving in and out, and just from the way that the Bills are constructing things right now, I think they're broadening that window a bit wider to where they're outside of that. They're not just getting a glimpse, but they're actually setting it to where they could have a set, you know, good 5 years of potential there,
yeah,
which is always fun to see because watching, obviously on paper, everything right now is on paper, putting into play, but what they're doing right now is clearly setting up, I think, for a very good stretch. I'm hoping for them at least,
yeah, they always
and for your sake.
Well, they always Brandon Bean and McDermott when they came into Buffalo. I mean, for a quarter century, the Bills were just the Bills. We were much like the laughing stock of the NFL, and they came in and they trust the process, right? That was their slogan: trust the process, trust the process. And 5 years into the McDean or the McBean, we call it Sean McDermott, Brandon Bean, McBean. Into the McBean era, you got I think the process is working. I think it's clear as day. So, yeah, not to be a homer, but I'm super excited about it. So glad
As
we
you
got
should
that
be.
out of the way. Now we can carry on to the real show, right?
Yeah, the actual hard hitting facts and things like that. Yeah.
um. So draft. We're in the window now. We are in draft window time frame, right? The mocks are flying out. We
Everywhere.
are actually hosting our first annual Nothing But the Game mock draft.
Heck yeah.
We're calling it Nothing But a Mock, and
Well done.
that'll be live next week. So everyone, make sure you're tuning in for that. And I think it's gonna be really interesting. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna have fun
Tu-
with it.
Tuning in is always interesting over here, but it's definitely going to be a notch above with the interesting.
Yeah,
A little bit extra.
I've been working on my announcer voice.
Oh, can we get a sample of this?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, I was actually caught off by being impressed with that. So
Yeah,
well done there.
it comes from
Nice
the
to,
what is that? Alto is alto. What's you're the musician here. What's
I
the
did. I did music school. I couldn't even tell you. Yeah, that's clearly. But yes, I'll agree with you. Alto there.
um. So all right, we had a really impressive trade take place earlier this week,
Yes.
and I want to break it down, and I want to I kind of want to tell you what my thoughts were on it. So you got the New Orleans Saints and the Philadelphia Eagles made a trade. The Saints are getting the number 16, the number 19, and pick 194. In return, the Eagles are getting pick 18, 101, 237, a 2023 first rounder, and a 2024 second rounder.
Man.
Initial thoughts were the Saints are going for a quarterback. That was my initial thought. But then I'm like looking at it. And I think this is the draft in general. I think it's gonna be a very weird draft, to be honest.
I'm hoping so. I really am.
I do.
All
I want.
the free agency and everything leading up to it.
Yeah. I want some. I want some really entertaining first round stuff. I feel like the last couple of years it's just been straight down the board. Nothing too crazy. Nothing exciting in the first round. And I think that this one's gonna be. I think you're gonna see some guys fall. I think you're gonna see some guys, get reached. Like I just think it's gonna be really entertaining. So yeah, my initial thought was they want to get a quarterback. Uh, and my second thought was the Eagles are definitely this is Jalen Hurts' last shot. So that was my initial
Do you
reaction.
think you think kind of taking that trade is almost like an insurance policy to where next year, they're almost taking this bet against New Orleans that they're thinking that the 2023 pick is going to be top 10 or something like that. And it's almost like an insurance policy. Hey, we're going to give Jalen his chance here. But if not, we're going to have, potential really good selections in this next draft.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean the where the Saints stand right now in the West, or I'm sorry, in the NFC South. I don't know. we've talked so much about the West lately. It's like
You're just looking at this beautiful background. All you're thinking of is the West now.
right.
Just I want to go West.
It's just it's embedded in my brain. The West.
I'm just really, really hoping a tumbleweed flies by in the
Oh man, that
background.
would be epic, dude.
But yeah, sorry, New Orleans, South.
I, in terms of the NFC South, I don't think the Saints are in a great position right now to compete in the South. Let alone, the NFC. Like you might see this. This is going to be I think a couple hardcore transition years for them. Sean Payton's gone. They're having a lot of turnover. Guys are aging out. So I think it's a really smart move by the Eagles because I think that pick has a chance to be potentially high as well. Like,
Oh yeah,
so
I think within the now the move of Matt Ryan and things like that with the Falcons kind of puts a whole lot of that division up in the air of like who's going to be in that bottom range. But I think personally, you're looking at Saints being in that four, if not three, if not four for sure. And I right now I'm curious on if they've identified that or in their accepting the rebuild mode.
yeah,
Um, this type of pick, I mean, this type of thing right now, I guess it's say, hey, let's hyper start this rebuild and start it now. Like that's what I'm wondering what it's like because they're getting those extra first round picks, the extra first round pick there. I am curious on like what that mindset is.
I think it's. I mean, I think it's definitely. I almost guarantee. Wait, I almost guarantee that they go quarterback, wide receiver with 16 and 19. Get that?
It's a it's a
The
great spot to do so.
It is. I mean, I don't think. I don't think that there's going to be a quarterback off the board early. I really don't. Um,
I'll agree with you there, or at least there shouldn't be. There's always that QB hype going into the draft, and you just somebody sneaks up there. Something happens.
oh yeah, yeah.
Uh,
We're gonna get into that in a
during
little
pro
bit because
days, yeah.
you and I.
But I agree with you talent wise. Yeah, probably shouldn't be done until the top. I mean, just in a broad spectrum of things, not like thinking of the teams that are taking their picks. Probably shouldn't be one taken until like the top 12, 14, honestly.
Right. And they're probably right in that range, and that's probably what the Saints are thinking. And I mean, if I just, if I had to guess, I would think that they're taking Kenny Pickett because he's, it's very. I don't want to say they're just going to try to replace Drew Brees because I don't think there's replacing Drew Brees, but as far as attributes of him, like it's very similar to. It's very similar to Drew Brees. They're a lot of familiar, like the head coach coming in. It's all same or continuity, right? Like he was there before. You got. I don't know. That's my guess. Is that that's what their plan with this is? But you actually have an interesting take. So
All right, so this is, and I will preface this with you've got all these rumors. The I'm drawing blank on the podcast that I listen to all the time. Harris podcast. He calls it farts and whistles. Give him that credit there because it's just so much of that noise that happens all the time. That media, but sometimes those things actually do come to fruition. And for the sake of that, I could see New Orleans coupling both that 16 and 19 up. So say you've got a lot of this like right now, the kind of the running rhetoric out in for Detroit is like they really like Willis. Like, will they move up? Will they take him at number two? That a whole bunch of stuff. Say that happens, or even say it doesn't, and New Orleans feels like they do have to jump because they have info that they got to move forward to get the guy that they want. I could definitely see a them taking that 16 and that 19, shooting it up to one of my divisional foes as a Cowboys fan, and giving it to the Giants at the number 5 spot, and also receiving along with that second round 81st pick, and coupling that with, hey, we're gunning for this quarterback. Maybe they've fallen in love with somebody. I'm not putting a name on who. Uh, I would probably say, like you had mentioned, Kenny Pickett would be that asset that they would want to acquire, and in doing so, like it is once again, like I said, hitting that hard reset, not just kind of like, all right, what you're saying with the Bills, trust the process. This is like, no, this is like we're hitting a hard reset here. We've got a game plan that we want to work on. This is what we're going with. I think that is something that could definitely happen. And in return, on the New York Giants side, it is definitely something that they would be, I think, benefit from massively. Obviously, they get the 16 and 19, but there's in general, as we talked about in the past, they have already embraced that rebuild mode. They're open arms to it. They're taking it in, and in a draft like this, where there isn't this highly, top 8 picks that are like, oh my gosh, you have to have these, or these are franchise changing players.
Right.
Like kind of last year, you no matter what the performances were last year, you had Trevor Lawrence, franchise, off the charts rating wise, scouting wise, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson. Honestly, the amount of guys that came out in that draft are insane. With Javonte Williams, clearly you can tell I'm on the Dynasty Devi side of things, fantasy football. I know offensive guys, defensive guys too. They're packed in there, but this year you do have a lot of those solid pieces, but nothing that is like, oh my gosh, I have to have it, unless you're really, really, really searching for the QB. So I think the New York Giants could really benefit from this by moving back, and that to me will be definitely triggered if Malik Willis is taken early. If there's some hype around him, um, that's one of my favorite parts about the draft, is that it's you never really know. There's, like you said, thousands upon thousands of mocks, but when the rubber hits the road, there's times when we're all, that pick comes in and Goodell's announcing it, and we're all like, who the who did they just take? What the hell were they just doing?
Yeah.
So
It's
that trade process is kind of baking on that a little bit.
so to kind of like piggyback off of that, so say like hypothetically, the Giants and the Saints do make this trade, right? Well, the Giants have 7 as well.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they could turn around. They could turn around and hand that off to get more mid-round stuff, right? Or even stuff
Yep.
for next year.
Man, you're going to get me down the rabbit hole here. Yeah, they could.
I mean, and so this is, I have a lot of familiarity with, Joe Sheen and Brian Dable, right? These are guys. These are both coming. They're coming from the McDermott and Brandon Beane tree, and like Sheen was the assistant general manager to Brandon Beane. So the whole drafting and develop mantra, I'm sure, is going to come with this regime and the rebuilding of the Giants. And those guys, I mean, that's what these guys are all about. They're all about drafting and develop. So if you can get more of the, and this is a really, we talk about it. This is a really deep draft, right? But there's no, I don't want to say like studs, but like there's no like you say like franchise changing players. This is just tons of depth, right? And it goes really deep. It goes deep into these mid rounds, and this is a if you're on that rebuilding side of the league right now, like the Giants are, like I think that's exactly what you're trying to do is let me turn this capital that I have and turn it into more, right? Let me trade it into
Yeah,
more and let me get some guys in the second round and the third round. Hell, even the
and
fourth
I
round.
think
I mean,
I mean, with that seventh pick you mentioned, it is they're probably really hoping that somebody just goes quarterback needy or crazy in this draft because if something does happen in front of them, man, they have that set with the 5 and 7. That becomes massively valuable to a few teams that are probably looking like New Orleans, maybe like I mean I know Trubisky's in Pittsburgh, but teams that were looking at quarterbacks going into this, possibly Seattle, who knows? You know, if they're not really secure with where they are, um, it's yeah. I'm hoping something weird happens just for the see what the trade off happens and see how if we start having like a stock market style draft this year.
oh man, I think it would be so interesting. And for anybody just tuning in, like that, we plan to we will be covering the draft live as it's happening. We will have a live show, so you'll hear probably even more crazier takes than what we got going on right now. Evan will be
Oh yeah,
our Evan will be our boots on ground. You're actually going to be attending the draft, correct?
be there. I will be there in Vegas. Um, we'll be figuring out where the heck I will be. Maybe just holding a phone up, streaming it because you know the craziness. But I will be there and just bringing in some info for you guys.
Man,
It's gonna be tons of fun, and that's why I'm really hoping some of the craziness goes down, so we can start just throwing out all these hypotheticals and thoughts.
oh yeah.
Um,
I mean, so I want to keep talking here about this trade because I had a trade concept, a trade idea in my head that actually affects the Carolina Panthers. Let me uh, let me get this tweet out here so that we get some guys to tune in and see.
mul- multitasking.
I'm trying. I'm doing my best
That's
here.
why. That is why you are the man at the helm, and I'm the guy pouring a drink, just chilling out in this beautiful scenery.
uh, I with the thought and the idea that a quarterback goes early, right? And say even this trade that we're talking about right now, this hypothetical trade, I think the Carolina Panthers will actually try to move down as well and start gearing up for next year, right? So it's been talked about over and over and over again how deep next year's draft is and how talented it is, and the quarterbacks coming out, and we start talking about teams that need quarterbacks now, and Carolina, they're in need of a quarterback. Pittsburgh, we're not sure what they have with Trubisky. Seattle, we're not sure what they have with Locke. Hell, the Washington Commanders, we don't even know. I don't know. I feel like we kind of know what they
Uh,
have with Carson Wentz, but
we do, but it's yeah. What year Carson Wentz will we get?
right, exactly. Um,
And with all those, and see that there's the different story. I hate saying storylines, but the different variables that are within each team. Like you were talking about with Carolina, what is Matt Rule's job security like? You know, is this something that he wants to keep building? Because there's tons of foundation there. Obviously, there's all those trade rumors early on about McCaffrey. If they'll deal him out for whatever insane amount, but with his contract. But they have DJ Moore, Terrence Marshall, um, Anderson out there. They have Chuba Hubbard behind. Like they have. and then on the defensive side, they have solidified what they do have on defense to prove that, hey, we can support you defensively. We just need to have somebody that's commanding that offense. Um, I'm curious on how Rule's going to go about that, and which makes me intrigued on what you think they'll do with their six spot.
Um, so I don't know. It's I
Hypothetically.
my hypothetical thought, and this is again, if a quarterback goes early, if a quarterback comes off the board really quick, uh, I think Carolina might try to trade back again, and the team I picked them to trade back with was actually I just tweeted out, like, I think they'll trade back with the Texans. Now, I think what's going really untalked about, right? So there was so much coverage on the Deshaun Watson, right? On Deshaun Watson to the Browns, but I don't think there wasn't a lot of coverage, and not a lot of people are talking about the assets and the draft capital that the Texans got from the Browns, right? Now,
Right. Yeah.
that's ammunition. The Texans have Davis Mills. I think I think they trust him, right? I think that that's their plan moving forward. They wouldn't have dished out Deshaun Watson if that wasn't their plan. I don't think, right? Highly
Yeah.
highly sought after, highly sought prospect. After his junior year, senior year, he had a bad senior year campaign. He ends up going in the fifth round, but the mechanics are there. Everything's there. Like, Davis Mills is probably their guy, and I wouldn't be surprised. And this kind of works for both parties here. Carolina moving back to 13, right? So Houston and Carolina swap picks in the first round, six for 13. Houston throws in their 2023 first rounder that they got from the Browns, and they move up to 6. And now this is where anybody that's tuning in is probably call me crazy, and it's a reach, right? But they need a playmaker. They don't have any offensive support whatsoever. They have Nico Collins. Nico Collins, third round pick out of Michigan, right? I
Yeah.
think he's a solid wide receiver, right? I praise Peoples Jones all the time on this podcast, because and I think that's the kind of role that he is, right? He's a strong starter, number 2. He's got good speed, good body, good size, but they need a playmaker. And I know he's not the number 1 wide receiver prospect in this draft, but Treylon Burks is a playmaker. He has that. I mean, in terms of wide receiver and ceiling wise, I think he has the highest ceiling out of this wide receiver class, and we've seen it this year with Deebo Samuel, right? Cordell Patterson. Cordell Patterson's like, he converted over to running back when he was with New England, but it's the same. It's the same type of athlete, right? This big physical jack of all trades with the ball in their hands, and that's what Treylon Burks is, and that's what I think is driving his stock value so high, is because this is a copycat league, right?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the Texans do something crazy like this, because they have all this ammunition that they can offload to go up and make a big move. And in terms of Carolina and the benefit for them, again, gearing up for the 2023 draft. I mean, the Eagles set the tone. The Eagles
Mm-hmm.
absolutely set the tone with that trade with the Saints.
Oh yeah.
2022 draft is not the draft. It's 2023, and we want to be there. And
And
I won't be surprised if more teams follow. I really won't.
yeah, and that's what's really sparking this, our session today with these trades is because now that there's, like we said, a lot more depth, but there's also in 2023 there's a lot of really good prospects. Each year has its own thing. Like you were talking about Davis Mills in his junior year, highly sought after. I don't know a whole lot of players that in the Pac-10, 12, Pac whatever it is out there that survived that Pac-10 during the COVID year because there's so much stock that dropped. I mean, look, um, oh my gosh, London, Drake London.
Drake London, yeah.
His stock took a dip for a little bit because out there they weren't playing as many games. They weren't getting out there as much. The competition wasn't consistent. If you got hurt at all and missed the limited amount of games that they were playing in the Pac-10, then your stock took a massive hit. And Davis Mills was definitely one of those guys. Um, like you said, prospect, a lot of work that needs to be done. But I do think Houston, I agree with you, see something in him that is going to want to see what else can be done with him whenever he's actually given more responsibilities. But in order to do so, Nico Collins, I love his potential. I know I've got him in a couple of Devy leagues myself, but it's not that number one. Just I'm leaning on that guy,
Right.
and so I'm gonna kind of really make it more on that exciting thing of taking a trail on Burks because what other team could genuinely utilize a guy who, if he does live up to be a Debo Samuel potential, they don't. What do they have at running back? What do they have at wide receiver? So he could literally fill multiple holes as a hybrid. And yeah, you could target in on him NFL, but that's a whole scheming. You're building something here, and that I mean that could be super 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 interesting if they actually go do something to take him. No matter where they pick, I think if they take Treylon Burks, I think that'll be a great idea on their side because they're the gaping lack of just not talent. I don't want to say that. Just lack of exciting potential on,
Yeah.
on that offensive side.
There's
It's the most political way I could say that.
there's I was just like as you're talking there, I'm just like working out another trade in my head that I it still has to do with Carolina and Houston. Like I don't know, man. Something is telling me like if I could put money on this, I would because I think this is gonna happen, and it could be even bigger than that. I mean, salary cap wise, Houston has the most or has the second most uh, available cap space. Um, and I wouldn't be surprised if an even bigger trade takes place where they take on Christian McCaffrey or something like that, right?
Don't tell me that for my fantasy teams, but that would be super exciting.
I know. I too have Christian McCaffrey on my dynasty roster.
That stock would take a bit of a tab there, but no, yeah, that's you mentioned that the salary cap. A lot of these things that go into it, we don't really understand in the back office wise,
Right.
and yeah, I mean, there's so many variables that are looked at that could be super interesting.
Yeah, it's man, I'm so excited for the draft and I'm
Uh,
so excited for next week for the mock draft, man. I cannot wait to see what you and CJ come up with. I can't wait to host it.
no, it's definitely gonna be fun. We'll have some. I know we each have our own takes. CJ is definitely more in tuned, all full focus, and I glaringly show my fantasy uh, leniency towards the offense. But it'll definitely be a lot of fun. I mean, shoot, everybody else is getting out there and throwing out. I was reading one through what was it, PFF, Pro Football Focus today, and they're just doing one of like if the people could choose all each team's selection, what are the fans picking? And seeing it, it's so interesting seeing all these mocks and ideas and like thoughts go out. And that's what we're doing here. So hopefully next week we can bring something unique. I know it's definitely beaten down after a little bit, but we'll bring something fun for you guys.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely it's gonna be a good time, and I think it'll just no matter what kind of takes we bring, I think just in general, I think it'll be a really fun setup, man. So if you're tuning in, if you're watching right now, be sure to check us out next week, April 13th, for the first annual Nothing But a Mock. Nothing But a Mock.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Nothing But the Game. All right, so let's keep this going. I love talking about this. Like I love bringing up
Yeah.
hypothetical thoughts. Are there any other trades that you think?
So with I'm just keeping with this quarterbacks going early, run on quarterbacks. It doesn't have to be in that top 5, like I was saying with New Orleans, moving up earlier. But say there is that run a little earlier. A lot of people saying maybe 3 quarterbacks go in the first round, but you never really know for sure. I have one with Seattle, being that, like we mentioned earlier, they don't know what they have with Locke over there, and they're not. You're not putting all your chips on, personally. For me, if I was a GM, putting all your chips on that, and you're not going all in on black there. I'm one to kind of divvy things up a little bit, and so I think they would try to package their one of their 2 second round picks. So they could jump up from the either 40 or 41st and throw in their 109 and throw it over to New, sorry, I keep saying New York Giants, New York Jets, and move into that first round. To me, this is going to be for Matt Corral. I know they've been interviewing him. I know that they've been kind of fond of what he can do. And personally, in my rankings, I have him in my top 3 overall QBs. He provides some mobility. He provides an exciting. He has the arm to keep DK Metcalf fed. He has the arm to keep Lockett fed, but at the same time keep teams. They just re-signed up with Penny. So who knows what they could do? And he has that mobility to kind of just throw a little bit of a niche in there, somewhat like they're used to. Not same with Russell, but maybe still keep some of that flair going. I think he actually is a little bit more watching his film. Coral is a lot more willing to kind of use his legs than Russell was, so they may try to utilize that a little bit more.
Well, all right, yeah. So, and that was much of Russell's game. Much of Russell's game was getting outside the pocket and rolling out and kind of improvising. And so that
Yes.
could be very very fitting. I love that they retained Rashad Penny. The DK Metcalf trade talks that are going on right now, I think it's all just, I don't want to call it a smoke screen, but
yeah, that's either media getting bored with the fact that they got spoiled with exciting first few weeks of free agency and now they don't know what to do.
I think you're
But
exactly right.
I don't see any way how they could. Personally, he's just an insane talent. I don't see why they do anything with him. Him and AJ Brown, with those rumors going around, both freak shows and in a good way.
So, taking your trade off the table, if there's not a run at quarterback, right? Because this has obviously been nothing but wide receiver, right? Wide receiver talk, wide receiver talk, wide receiver talk. Like, this draft is stacked with wide receivers. Matt Corral at 40 or 41, absolutely possible.
Yeah, 100% possible. That's why, in if things would play out like the common mock as you watch, that would be very possible.
Yeah.
And I can see that definitely happening. Shoot, they could do that, and I mean they have other areas that they need to address, but I mean they could even trade back if they wanted to on maybe get an additional third going in there or something with that other pick. It's whatever they do have a very intriguing position, being that this is a depth draft, a deeper draft. Obviously, people stand out through time, but at that 40-41, it is. I'm intrigued at what they'll actually do. or if they'll just play it safe and kind of go with more building what they need.
Yeah, so I love that we've hit on it a few times in tonight's show, but to me that is everything about this draft. It is such a deep draft, and I think teams that are like really competitive teams would be smart if they try to consolidate, or not try to consolidate. I'm sorry, but try to trade back, man, and get more draft
Yeah,
capital. Like,
pack in those mid rounds.
yeah, exactly. Pack in those mid rounds. I guess that's what I was trying to say was consolidate the mid rounds, right? Uh, and we kind of touched on the whole Brandon Bean and his method, and how Joe Sheen over there and the Giants are probably gonna, they could probably do the same thing with the draft capital that they have right now. But like at 25, the Bills have 25, and I don't think that I'm not saying that there's not value at 25, but I also don't think it would hurt to get out of 25. And I really like maybe like a team that wants to get up and get one of those, those strong receivers, like a Chris Olave from uh,
Ohio State.
Ohio State. I was actually working out a trade in my head there between the Bills and Atlanta. Atlanta giving up their second and their third, and like a fifth from like 2023 or something like that, right? Like something to move back up into, top 25 there, to move back up into the first round, and select a wide receiver kind of later there in the first round after they need to shore up their defensive line, and I think that's where they're going with their first pick. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I would like. I mean, the Bills also have. I don't know exactly the numbers on it, but I know the Bills are pretty small there with the salary cap space. And the way the salary cap works is like they take your top 51 contracts, and that's how they determine space available. First rounders bring in you know X amount of millions of dollars, and that's so if you could get out of that,
Yeah.
double up in the second and the third. To me, that's way more valuable than a selection at 25.
So add just out of curiosity, because I know what I would want the Bills to do at 25, but if that did switch around, and say ATL goes up and gets that 25th, what do you think that they be eyeing on in that range, or is it a? Because I know with obviously this is outside the game, but Calvin Ridley probably isn't going to be playing this year. You got Kyle Pitts, who is just outstanding, but he can't carry everything on his own. So is this? Do you think they'd be addressing something in that area?
Do I think Atlanta would be addressing
Yeah,
something?
yeah, Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean,
Or do you think maybe on that running back side, where they clearly just have nothing youth?
okay, so that's interesting because I think the running back side of, I think second and third round is where all these running backs, these top round running backs are going, right? Like Kenneth Walker. So, wow, do they
I
do
think
that?
I think I think personally, I would love this. I think Brees Hall, just because it has the best chance of getting in the first round. And if that happens, I think Atlanta would potentially take something at that with him.
Do you know
Because
how that would start the whole running back frenzy?
oh yeah, you start seeing some Kenneth Walker go out there, Spiller, Rashad White. Man, you start seeing a lot of those guys that had that earlier, that like you said, day two picks. A
Yeah.
lot of the running backs are that day two window, as they should be. Just wear and tear of the NFL. But I think Brees Hall is the best ability to ignite it. And I mean, Atlanta could use, I mean, anything in their 20s at running back.
Yeah, I mean, so they retained Cordell Patterson, and he was phenomenal for them. You know, Arthur Smith has done a great job. I think Marcus Mariota is gonna. I don't want to say ignite their pass game, but I think he's gonna bring a dynamic that Matt Ryan couldn't. Um, so did I lose you? This is epic, man. Just so epic. I love. we always Evan, we're always losing you with like the craziest facial expressions, man. So if you're watching right now, if you're listening, this is awesome. All right, so to answer Evan's question,
Woo! My laptop literally said, "Hey, you're low on battery." Seconds later, off. So I apologize.
you're good, man. You're good. It froze on the perfect facial expression. I mean, you were
Always,
always, man.
as always.
You were hardcore thinking. It was like it was great.
It probably got me midway through, like seeing that. Hey, your battery's about to die. It's like, oh shit, I should probably check on this.
Yeah.
And then bye, adios. And you're in the midst of talking about Mariota. I mean, potentially launching off some, opening up that pass game a little bit in a different way.
Yeah. I mean, it was like I don't think Mariota is nearly as great as a passer as Matt Ryan is, but I think he is going to bring a different dynamic to that offense that could open up their pass game. I love the idea of Brees Hall, but I really do think because of what you kind of hit on the uncertainty of Calvin Ridley, like I think they move up and they're going to get somebody that's um, a wide receiver that's available. I mean, I don't know. This draft's gonna be so weird because so much interior lineman help is needed throughout the league, and you want to get them. You always want to get those. You know, this isn't a very deep draft in terms of defensive interior linemen, and you you want to go get those guys quick, but I mean, I'm looking right now through. Yeah, I really like the Chris Olave from Ohio State at 25 if he's not off the board already. Because you have corner prospects, wide receiver prospects, and offensive linemen. And
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting because I think if there is the offensive lineman potential there, um, off return on investment, and um, with there are some guys in there that can actually go in and say like Trevor Penning is still up in there, or I don't think he would be there, but Cross, I can't remember his first name, is still available. Those are, I think, guys that are going to be able to, but in that short term, yeah, it could be interesting. I think that with this wide, would they have anything with that trade? I guess they wouldn't have a second round or a third round, would they?
no, and that's where like back to your whole Brees Hall point. I think you hit the nail on the head with it. I wasn't even thinking in that term, but with them losing that second and third, like in in this hypothetical trade, you're right. I think that's exactly where they would go.
It It would address a few things because obviously a running back, but Brees can catch it out of the backfield as well, and so he'd provide that. And then, honestly, you could double up with Brees and Cordell Patterson in the backfield, and then run him out wide. You could do multiple different things with both of them. Patterson only has really a few years left of actual legit threat ability. I think it'd be a lot of fun. If they went wide receiver, then I could see them just being like, all right, hey, let's ride Cordero and Mike Davis. Did they retain Mike Davis? I haven't even paid attention to that.
What's that?
Mike Davis. Him, Cordell Patterson, and Mike Davis. That was pretty much their backfield.
Yeah.
I can't remember if he's still on there. If they ride that any longer and just go down, because top end wise, next year's draft with Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, I mean, if you can snag either one of those guys, you're looking at generational potential there.
Yeah.
So it's all these hypotheticals are so much fun. That's what makes the draft amazing, because what one team does, 4 or 5 picks ahead, may not seem crazy, but it's affecting so many, like the butterfly effect. It's just affecting so many things that we're not really paying attention to.
Yep.
And I know we said it so many times, but I cannot wait for it to just come out to Las Vegas and get it going.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be a hell of a time. I really think it might not be this loaded draft, but I think it's gonna be one of the most interesting drafts that we've seen in a couple of years.
Yeah. I do not know how we talked for 15 on 4 trade potentials, but I love it.
Yeah. I got a fifth real quick. This actually
oh yeah.
Real quick, this was actually CJ's trade. CJ called me earlier. CJ, for those of you tuning in, CJ's not feeling well tonight, so he had to skip out. So CJ, if you're listening, we hope you feel better, man. But he actually thinks that Kansas City's going to take their their 2 first rounders, and they're going to try to move up, and they want Jameson Williams.
Oh, yes, that fit is absolutely. Yeah, I'll Jameson Williams to go to Kansas City.
So, we didn't even really. Looks like we're kind of getting to the end of the show here. We didn't even really have a chance to dive into your Dynasty talks. I mean, we got the mock next week, but the following week, the week before the draft.
Oh yeah,
we got some stuff to talk about. So we'll dive into some fantasy football, some Dynasty League stuff. I'm looking at
the beauty of in Dynasty, man, is once the draft ends, is almost like it's like a rebirth of another season. Leading up to it, there's like Devy and Dynasty side of fantasy football. You have your 3 parts, and it kind of like post draft, man. It is all right. We took our bets on these guys. We've possibly have been holding on to them for 3 or 4 years, and now the stock has been actually, assumed. Where did they go? Where was their draft value? All these different things. So definitely stick along with us. We'll be talking a lot in regards to value of rookie players and so on. And I'm looking forward to that part of the year for sure.
Oh yeah, it's about to get real good, man. This is where we're gonna make our money. Aid? What? Oh, my bad. No. But all right, man. Well, let's wrap it up. Why don't you go ahead and close this out, Evan?
All right, guys. Well, as always, thank you for tuning in to especially the randomness that happens sometimes on here. Definitely be sure to follow us on Twitter at NBTG_podcast. And subscribe to us on YouTube for all of our future videos. Definitely for the Nothing But the Mock and going live in and out on the first round day of the draft. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and see y'all next week.
right. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.